4 years before the Berlin fell, the world was about to witness a dawn that would shake it to its core. Planes roared, tanks rolled across a border that stretched nearly 3,000 kilometers. Bridges were seized before anyone could even react. Airfields burned, communications were cut. The chaos hit like a hurricane, and the world changed forever. This wasn't just another attack, this wasn't just another campaign, this was the largest land invasion in recorded history. Over 3 million German soldiers, backed by Romanian, Hungarian, Finnish, and Italian troops, surged into the Soviet Union, millions of men moving like a single unstoppable force across the frozen fields and forests, across rivers and railways, with only one goal: to annihilate the Red Army and capture the Soviet heartland. And in that single moment, the Second World War became something else, something bigger, something far deadlier. This wasn't just about borders now, this was about ideology, this was about domination, this was about revenge. Nearly 30 million people would die on the Eastern Front alone. Soldiers, civilians, prisoners, villages, cities burned, families vanished, and yet Hitler thought it would be easy, that the Soviet Union could be crushed in months, that by winter Moscow would be flying in the Nazi flag. He was wrong. This was the gamble that would consume him. This was the attack that stunned Stalin. This was the war that would devour its invader. This was Operation Barbarossa. The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, officially known as the Treaty of Non-Aggression between Germany and the USSR, also referred as the Hitler-Stalin Pact and Nazi-Soviet Pact, was signed in Moscow on 24 August 1939 by Soviet Foreign Minister Vyacheslav Molotov and German Foreign Minister Joachim von Ribbentrop.
Molotov and von Ribbentrop got together, and the Nazis and Communists signed a pact. It was a betrayal by the Communists, and the world was plunged into war.
It was presented as a simple non-aggression agreement, but in reality it was far more than an economic non-aggression treaty, serving instead a tool of pure imperialism, with a secret protocol that established Soviet and German spheres of influence across Eastern Europe and effectively allowed both powers to divide the region between themselves, with the understanding that they could assist each other in conquering those territories. With the secret additional protocol of 23rd August 1939 specifying that Poland would be partitioned, Latvia, Estonia, Finland, and Bessarabia would fall under the Soviet sphere, while Lithuania lay in the German sphere. This secret protocol's rumored existence in the West was only confirmed years later when it was finally made public. Historians also argue that for Soviets, it was essentially a way to buy time to prepare for the inevitable war, because they were fully aware that Hitler had long considered the USSR a mortal enemy of Germany, a plan Hitler had been talking about since 1920s. While the Soviets also sought to retake territories lost after the October Revolution, when Bolsheviks under Lenin signed treaties pulling the Soviet Union out of World War I and giving up lands including parts of Poland. Barely a week after signing the pact, on 1st September 1939, Germany invaded Poland from the west. Followed by the Soviet invasion on 17 September, one day after the Soviet Union officially validated the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, with Stalin citing concern for ethnic Ukrainians and Belarusians in Poland as justification. After a short but decisive campaign that crushed Poland, Germany and the Soviet Union drew up a new border between themselves over the formerly Polish territory, setting the stage for a temporary, uneasy cooperation between two powers that were always destined to clash.
Vor einem Jahr war organisierten anlässlich des französischen Nationalfeiertages hier noch englische Soldaten in der großen
The Balkan region, including Romania, Bulgaria, Yugoslavia, Greece, and surrounding territories, was of critical importance because it held not only vital oil resources, most notably Romania's oil fields, which were essential for fueling the tanks, planes, and trucks of the German war machine, but also key trade routes like the Danube River and direct access to the Mediterranean Sea, meaning that whoever controlled this region, the Balkan region, would have immense economic strength, significant military advantage, and far-reaching political influence across southeastern Europe, making it a strategic prize that both Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union desperately wanted to dominate. Germany's primary goal was to secure Romanian oil to sustain its military operations, expand its economic and territorial influence across the Balkans, prevent Soviet expansion towards Central Europe, and support governments friendly to the Axis power, while the Soviet Union simultaneously sought to extend its own influence southwards, reclaim territories such as Bessarabia from Romania, assert greater control over Bulgaria, and possibly gain access to the strategic Turkish Straits. A combination of competing ambitions that fueled growing mistrust and tensions between two nations. This mistrust intensified dramatically when the Soviet Union annexed Bessarabia and northern Bukovina from Romania in 1940. An act that alarmed Germany due to its reliance on Romanian oil and foreshadowed further conflict. And as Germany then began to press its influence in Bulgaria and ultimately invaded Yugoslavia and Greece, the suspicion and hostility escalated to the point where diplomatic talks failed entirely by late 1940, leaving both sides for an inevitable confrontation. And when Germany launched Operation Barbarossa in June 1941, it abruptly ended the fragile cooperation between the two powers and plunged them into an open war, a turning point that came after Germany's swift and decisive win over France in 1940 that had freed Hitler to redirect his focus from Western Europe, allowing German forces to mass troops in occupied Poland, conduct military observation deep into Soviet territory, and intensify Nazi propaganda that once again painted the Soviet Union as the ultimate enemy, setting the stage for the largest and most devastating conflict that continent had ever seen. The plan of Hitler was exactly the same from the beginning. He used the Soviet Union as a tool to expand Germany's territory westward, and the non-aggression pact was never truly about peace, but merely a clever strategy to postpone the inevitable war against the USSR and to carry out his ambitions without any interference, giving him time to consolidate his forces, prepare his armies, and move his political and military pawns across Europe. With the invasion carefully scheduled for 1941, although the Soviets didn't know the exact details of his plan, their spies in Germany repeatedly sent urgent warnings. Intelligence reports highlighted massive troops movements, and even Britain, fully aware of Hitler's intentions, directly warned Stalin that Germany was preparing for a massive strike. Yet despite all the signs, Stalin hesitated, uncertain how to respond, and in December 1940, Hitler signed Directive Number 21, the blueprint for Operation Barbarossa, a code name for a bold, aggressive attack designed to crush the Soviet Union, which he considered his biggest, most powerful, and most dangerous enemy, and for which 3/4 of the German army, along with a significant number of Axis allies, were meticulously deployed with the aim of completely obliterating the USSR and planting the Nazi flag over Moscow as a symbol of total domination. The invading forces was divided into 3 massive army groups, each with a specific ambitious objective. the North Army, moving towards Leningrad. The South Army advanced towards Kiev and the resource-rich territories of Ukraine, while the Center Army, the heart of the operation, pushed directly towards Moscow with the explicit goal of seizing the Kremlin and placing the Nazi banner over it as the ultimate act of conquest. This operation, executed with shocking speed and scale, became the largest land invasion in recorded history, an attack so audacious and enormous that it would turn the course of entire Second World War upside down, reshaping the strategies, the alliances, and the very fate of nations, leaving a mark on history that is still remembered today as the moment when Hitler's ambition collided head-on with the immense power of Soviet Union, setting the stage for a brutal, bloody struggle that would define the Eastern Front for years to come. On the night before the German attack, the Soviet leadership, including Stalin, were fully aware that an invasion was very likely, or at least allowed for a real possibility of one, as evidenced by the frantic efforts of Soviet ambassador in Berlin to reach Ribbentrop to confirm a number of very obvious signs pointing to the impending assault. And although the signs of war had appeared even earlier, the Soviet leadership had already begun preliminary steps at mobilization about a week prior. So what unfolded on the night of June 21-22 was in many ways not surprising, with the Soviet High Command issuing orders to the troops to be fully prepared for the imminent invasion, including instructions to man defensive fortifications, take measures against possible airstrikes, and remain vigilant. Yet the final part of the order instructed that troops should not react to provocations or act in any way that might appear provocative, a clause that has led some to believe that Stalin and the leadership were in complete denial about the invasion even as it began. However, when this clause is viewed in context, it is clear that the communication as a whole aimed to maintain vigilance and prepare to repel the attack while avoiding giving Germany any pretext to claim the Soviet Union as the aggressor, particularly in light of the fact that there had been no official declaration of war, ultimatum, or list of demands from the Germans, and German aircraft and special forces had been routinely violating Soviet airspace and borders in the lead up to the conflict, making incidents likely. So the situation was far more nuanced than simple disbelief, and Stalin can fairly be seen as acknowledging that war was imminent but not yet inevitable. Though by the time the attack began, it was already too late to fully mobilize the Red Army, which would have required a full month to properly prepare and deploy. Wanna hear a joke, Hitler? Cool, Stalin, go on. Moscow. What? I didn't get it. Exactly.
Drive our ships to new land, fight
Despite warnings and the deployment of Axis armies on his borders, Stalin refused to believe that Hitler would invade and forbade any defensive preparations as to not provoke possible German retaliation. Thus, the Soviets were caught completely unprepared. They were unable to halt deep Axis advances into Russia, which came close to seizing Moscow. However, the Red Army was still able to stop Germans at places. Hitler then pushed for oil reserves in Caucasus. The Soviets decisively defeated the Axis at the Battle of Stalingrad, the bloodiest battle in the war, making it one of the key turning points of the front. A second great Axis defeat at the Battle of Kursk crippled German offensive capabilities permanently and cleared the way for Soviet offensives. Following the Red Army's enormous success in Operation Bagration, another horrific battle when they destroyed Germany's army group center, several Axis allies defected to the communists such as Romania and Bulgaria. Germany was pushed by Soviets on east and Americans in the west, slowly shrinking. There was now an unofficial ideological war between USSR and the USA about who will take the control of Germany. Watching his empire and dream of conquering the world shrink, Hitler took his life in 30th April 1945. The Eastern Front concluded with the capture of Berlin, followed by the signing of German instrument of surrender on 8th May, ending the Eastern Front and marking the end of the bloodiest war in the history.